The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Let us pray. Almighty God, at this busy time of the session with committee deadlines looming and so much work to accomplish, grant to these elected representatives the wisdom to discern what is right and the courage to carry it out as they work for the common good of the people they are privileged to represent. We make this prayer in your powerful and holy name. Amen.
Amen. The chaplain for today is Deacon Nathan E. Allen from the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Members, please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Members, when the chief clerk calls the roll today to establish a quorum, please state your name, your location, and that you are present. Members using the remote application should also press the green Yay button when your name is called. The clerk will take the roll.
Acom.
Acom, Minnetonka, present.
Acom, Minnetonka, present. Agbadge.
Agbadge, Minneapolis, present.
Agbadge, Minneapolis, present. Ackland.
Ackland, St. Paul, present.
Ackland, St. Paul, present. Albright.
Albright, Prior Lake, present.
Albright, Prior Lake, present. Anderson.
Anderson, St. Paul, present.
Anderson, St. Paul, present. Backer.
Backer, Browns Valley, present.
Backer, Browns Valley, present. Bonner.
Bonner, Maple Grove, present.
Bonner, Maple Grove, present. Barr.
Barr, East Bethel, present.
Barr, East Bethel, present. Baker. Baker, St. Paul, present. Becker, Finn.
Becker, Finn, Roseville, present.
Becker, Finn, Roseville, present. Bennett.
Bennett, St. Paul, present.
Bennett, St. Paul, present. Berg.
Berg, West St. Paul, present.
Berg, West St. Paul, present. Bernardi.
Bernardi, New Brighton, present.
Bernardi, New Brighton, present. Bierman.
Bierman, Apple Valley, present.
Bierman, Apple Valley, present. Bliss.
Bliss, St. Paul, present.
Bliss, St. Paul, present. Bow.
Bow, Chanhassen, present.
Bow, Chanhassen, present. Bolden.
Bolden, St. Paul, present.
Bolden, St. Paul, present. Burkle.
Burkle, Skagen Township, present.
Burkle, Skagen Township, present. Carlson.
Carlson, Bloomington, present.
Carlson, Bloomington, present. Christensen.
Christensen, Stillwater, present.
Christensen, Stillwater, present. Daniels.
Daniels, St. Paul, present.
Daniels, St. Paul, present. Daudt. Daudt, St. Paul, present. Davids.
David, St. Paul, present.
David, St. Paul, present. Davney.
Dabney, Minneapolis, present.
Davney, Minneapolis, present. Damath.
Damath, Cold Spring, present.
Damath, Cold Spring, present. Detmer.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present. Drazkowski.
Drazkowski, Mazeppa, present.
Drazkowski, Mazeppa, present. Eklund.
Eklund, St. Paul, present.
Eklund, St. Paul, present. Edelson.
Edelson, Edina, present.
Edelson, Edina, present. Elkins.
Elkins, St. Paul, present.
Elkins, St. Paul, present. Erickson.
Erickson, St. Paul, present.
Erickson, St. Paul, present. Feist.
Feist, New Brighton, present.
Feist, New Brighton, present. Fisher.
Fisher, Maplewood, present.
Fisher, Maplewood, present. Frankie.
Frankie, St. Paul Park, present.
Frankie, St. Paul Park, present. Franzen.
Franson, Alexandria Township, present.
Franzen, Alexandria Township, present. Frazier.
Frazier, New Hope, present.
Frazier, New Hope, present. Frederick.
Frederick, St. Paul, present.
Frederick, St. Paul, present. Freiburg.
Freiburg, Golden Valley, present.
Freiburg, Golden Valley, present. Garofalo. Garofalo. Gomez.
Gomez, St. Paul, present.
Gomez, St. Paul, present. Green.
Green, Foston, present.
Green, Foston, present. Greenman.
Greenman, St. Paul present.
Greenman, St. Paul, present. Grossel. Excused. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, Carver County, present.
Gruenhagen, Carver County, present. Haley. Haley. Hamilton.
Hamilton, St. Paul, present.
Hamilton, St. Paul, present. Hanson R.
Hanson R., West St. Paul, present.
Hanson R., West St. Paul, present. Hanson J.
Hanson J. Burnsville present.
Hanson J. Burnsville, present. Hassan.
Hassan, St. Paul, present.
Hassan, St. Paul, present. Hausman.
Hausman, St. Paul, present.
Hausman, St. Paul, present. Heinrich.
Heinrich, Anoka, present.
Heinrich, Anoka, present. Heinzman.
Heisman, Nisswa, present.
Heinzman, Nizwa, present. Her, St. Paul, present. Hertas.
Hertas, Greenfield, present.
Hertas, Greenfield, present. Hollins.
Hollins, St. Paul, present.
Hollins, St. Paul, present. Hornstein.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present. Howard.
Howard, Richfield, present.
Howard, Richfield, present. Hewitt.
Hewitt, St. Paul, present.
Hewitt, St. Paul, present. Igo.
Igo, St. Paul, present.
Igo, St. Paul, present. Johnson.
Johnson, St. Paul, present.
Johnson, St. Paul, present. Jordan.
Jordan, Minneapolis, present.
Jordan, Minneapolis, present. Jurgens. Jurgens. Keeler.
Keeler, St. Paul, present.
Keeler, St. Paul, present. Keel.
Keel, St. Paul, present.
Keel, St. Paul, present. Cleavorn.
Cleveland, Plymouth present.
Cleavorn, Plymouth, present. Kegel.
Kegel, Spring Lake Park, present.
Kegel, Spring Lake Park, present. Katiza Wattoon.
Katiza Wattoon, Eden Prairie, present.
Katiza Wattoon, Eden Prairie, present. Kosnick. Kosnick. Creshaw.
Creshaw, Little Falls, present.
Creshaw, Little Falls, present. Lee.
Lee, Minneapolis, present.
Lee, Minneapolis, present. Liebling.
Liebling, Rochester, present.
Liebling, Rochester, present. Lilly.
Lily, St. Paul, present.
Lilly, St. Paul, present. Lippert.
Lippert, Northfield, present.
Lippert, Northfield, present. Lislegard.
Listlegard, St. Paul, present.
Lislegard, St. Paul, present. Long.
Long, Minneapolis, present.
Long, Minneapolis, present. Lucero.
Lucero, St. Paul, present.
Lucero, St. Paul, present. Lewick.
Lewick, St. Paul, present.
Lewick, St. Paul, present. Mariani.
Mariani, St. Paul, present.
Mariani, St. Paul, present. Marquart.
Marquart, St. Paul, present.
Marquart, St. Paul, present. Mason.
Mason, Egan, present.
Mason, Egan, present. McDonald.
McDonald, Delano, present.
McDonald, Delano, present. Mecklin.
Mecklin, St. Paul, present.
Mecklin, St. Paul, present. Miller. Miller, St. Paul, present. Moeller.
Moeller, Shoreview, present.
Moeller, Shoreview, present. Moran.
Moran, St. Paul, present.
Moran, St. Paul, present. Morrison.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present. Mortensen.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present. Mueller. Mueller, St. Paul, present. Munson.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present. Murphy.
Murphy, Hermantown, present.
Murphy, Hermantown, present. Nash.
Nash, Carver County, present.
Nash, Carver County, present. Nelson M.
Nelson M., Brooklyn Park, present.
Nelson M. Brooklyn Park, present. Nelson N. Nelson N. New Brindley, St. Paul, present. Nor,
Minneapolis, present.
Minneapolis, present. Novotny,
Elk River, present.
Elk River, present. O'Driscoll, excused.
O'Driscoll, St. Paul, present.
O'Driscoll, St. Paul, present. Olson B.
Olson B, St. Paul, present.
Olson B, St. Paul, present. Olson L.
Olson L. Duluth, present.
Olson L. Duluth, present. O'Neill.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present. Pulowski.
Pulowski, Winona, present.
Pulowski, Winona, present. Petersburg.
Petersburg, St. Paul, present.
Petersburg, St. Paul, present. Farr.
LeSueur, present.
Farr, LeSueur, present. Pearson.
Pearson, Rochester, present.
Pearson, Rochester, present. Pinto.
Pinto, St. Paul, present.
Pinto, St. Paul, present. Poston.
Poston, Lakeshore, present.
Poston, Lakeshore, present. Pryor.
Pryor, Duluth, present.
Pryor, Duluth, present. Quam.
Byron, present.
Quam, Byron, present. Raleigh.
Raleigh, St. Paul, present.
Raleigh, St. Paul, present. Rasmussen.
Rasmussen, St. Paul, present.
Rasmussen, St. Paul, present. Ryer.
Ryer, Egan, present.
Ryer, Egan, present. Richardson.
Mendota Heights, present.
Richardson, Mendota Heights, present. Robbins. Robbins, St. Paul, present. Sandell.
Sandell, Woodbury, present.
Sandell, Woodbury, present. Sandsted.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present. Schumacher.
Schumacher, St. Paul, present.
Schumacher, St. Paul, present. Schultz.
Schultz, St. Paul, present.
Schultz, St. Paul, present. Scott.
Scott, Andover, present.
Scott, Andover, present. Stevenson.
Stevenson, St. Paul, present.
Stevenson, St. Paul, present. Sundin.
Sundin, Carlton County, present.
Sundin, Carlton County, present. Swazinski.
Swazinski, Nordland Township, present.
Swazinski, Northern Township, present. Tice.
Riley, just 1 second here.
Tice. Thompson.
Thompson, St. Paul, present.
Thompson, St. Paul, present. Torkelson.
Torkelson, St. Paul, present.
Torkelson, St. Paul, present. Erdahl.
Erdahl, St. Paul, present.
Erdahl, St. Paul, present. Vang.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present. Waslowick.
Waslowick, White Bear Township, present.
Waslowick, White Bear Township, present. West.
West Blaine, present.
West Blaine, present. Winkler. Winkler, St. Paul, present. Walgamot. Walgamot, St. Paul, present. Zhang J.
Zhang J, St. Paul, present.
Zhang J, St. Paul, present. Zhang T.
Zhang T, Maplewood, present.
Zhang T, Maplewood, present. Joachim.
Joachim Hopkins, present.
Joachim Hopkins, present. Speaker Hortman. Speaker Hortman, St. Paul, present. Garofalo. Garofalo. Haley. Haley, St. Paul, present. Juergens. Juergens. Kosnick. Kosnick. Nelson N.
Nelson N, St. Paul, present.
Nelson N, St. Paul, present. Tice. Tice.
Paul, present.
Tice, St. Paul, present.
A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 92nd Session, 2021, 22nd day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Tuesday, March 9th, 2021.
If there is no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Comparison reports. A copy of this order of business is online. If there is no objection, the motions will prevail. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business is online. If there is no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of House files.
Second reading House File 203.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 269.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 537.
Second
reading
reading.
House File 614.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 749.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 809.
Second reading.
reading House File 901.
Second
Second
reading.
reading House File 1020.
Second
Second
reading.
reading House File 1074.
Second
Second
reading.
reading House File 1403.
Second
Second
reading.
reading House File 1438.
Second
Second
reading.
reading House File 1466.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1641.
Second reading.
And second reading House File
Second
1803.
reading. Second reading of Senate files.
Second reading Senate File number 395.
Second reading.
Second reading Senate File 440.
Second reading.
And second reading Senate File 1354.
Second reading. Introduction of bills. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction of first reading of House Files 2081 through 2113.
First reading House files 2081 through 2113. Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we'll take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail.
Albright moves that House Concurrent Resolution Number 1 be recalled from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration and be placed upon its adoption.
The member from Scott, Representative Albright, to your motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I couldn't imagine a more difficult time in the history of our state than what we have endured these past 12 months. I'm sure that there are other scenarios that one could conjure up that would dispel that notion, but I wouldn't want to. It's been difficult enough for all of us as it is. It has been, without question, unprecedented. I mean, really, could you imagine? Could anyone imagine a year ago that we would be subjected to the cancellation of most every aspect of our daily routines, of our lives? Could anyone imagine the lengths to which we would have to alter daily life, our work day, the school day, our social calendar? Could you imagine the lengths to which businesses of all manner and form would remake themselves over and over again to conform to the ever-changing executive orders placed upon them? Could you also imagine that 40% of the restaurants we knew and loved that have closed likely will never reopen? Could you imagine not being allowed to see your aging parents, the sick, the dying? Could you imagine how they would react to the endless days of loneliness and confusion? Could you have imagined the storm of suicide, mental illness, substance abuse, and violence rained down on this state? Especially our children, who even now worry about visiting their grandparents and older relatives because they've been told they might give them the virus. How do you recover from that? Could you have imagined that for most kids, a year of school is lost? No one could have possibly imagined the pain, the anguish, the devastation felt by so many at the loss of loved ones, of a life's work, a life dreamed of themselves. It is literally without description. And could you have imagined that most everything in the past year would be decided for us by a single individual? Could you imagine? But here we are today, debating the same resolution for what seems like the umpteenth time. And I imagine for some of you, that's exactly the way you imagined it would play out. I rose to speak on this floor in April of last year, shortly after this crisis began. And in my remarks, I said that I hoped that this would not become a partisan issue. Because how could our response be partisan? The virus certainly has not been partisan. And yet I have yet to hear from anyone in leadership an acknowledgement that lives have been destroyed. In an attempt to save lives, as I said it then, and it bears repeating, that's a terrible bargain. The response to any health crisis should never be so cold as to deny the freedom to earn a living, practice your faith, or disregard the rights of your neighbor. Data matters, yes, but transparency, trust, and humility matter more. We serve to be the voice of the people, and we have been silenced. This crisis has passed. It's time to act as we should, as co-equal branches of our government, and focus on the work that we have been charged with carrying out. I urge you to support this resolution. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any discussion to the Albright motion? Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, Representative Albright raised a number of important statistics and cited a number of significant numbers. I think it is noteworthy that he did not note the number 492,000, which is the number of dead Americans so far from COVID. He did not note the number 6,764, which is the number of dead Minnesotans. He didn't mention the number of motions we've had to end the COVID response, or that we've had 10 months of downplaying the seriousness of this disease and being told time after time after time that the emergency is over. He made no mention of ICU nurses, firefighters, emergency medical services, police officers, healthcare aides, home health aides, all the people who are the heroes of this pandemic. They too have a right to be protected in the workplace, to help save lives, and to continue to make Minnesota a place where people can have a reasonable expectation that we'll do better than other places when it comes to responding to health crises like this. We have a bill moving that addresses the business owner concerns. They've had extensive conversations in committee and privately. The bill will be heard in rules, I believe, and sent to the Health Committee. And members, there is a process. Legislators have been involved. This is a continuing crisis. It is getting better. But as I said the other day, spiking the ball before you get to the end zone does not actually win you the game. And we need to win this game on behalf of Minnesotans. Please vote no.
Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Winkler. You did not mention 138, which is the number of deaths that were underreported in nursing homes in the state of Minnesota during this pandemic. That number was issued yesterday by the governor's office, and I think we shouldn't go past this without noting the fact that that number was underreported, which is exactly what happened in New York State. Madam Speaker, I would request a roll call.
Representative Daudt requests a roll call. There are not 15 members in the chamber. So if you would like to raise your hand, please send an email to hands@house.mn with the subject line hands, and we'll give you 60 seconds. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Nash.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Representative Winkler pointed out things that Representative Albright apparently had left out, but what Representative Winkler leaves out in his commentary is that we have not really been talking about what this is truly all about. Ending the governor's powers is about putting the legislature back in the driver's seat. And Representative Winkler has failed to realize and mention that on a regular basis. This is not necessarily about ending the COVID pandemic or spiking the ball, as he said, but this is putting 201 voices back into the mix where it belongs appropriately. So I would ask Representative Winkler and members of the DFL to stop minimizing the role of the legislature and the power of your election certificate, because we don't necessarily dismiss that COVID is not a thing. I fully believe that it is a big deal, but so is the role of the legislature. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't want to belabor this, but I do want to just comment on a couple of things. First of all, what was just said about letting the voices of the legislature back in. Members, if you haven't noticed, the legislature is in session. We are working. We are doing our work. We are doing a budget. And in my committee, the minority's been really very cooperative and helpful in letting us do that work, which is very much appreciated. I hope all the members are helping to contribute to having the actual voices of the legislature heard by doing the work that is before us. So to say that we haven't been doing that is just absolutely false. Secondly, I just wanted to respond really quickly to Representative Daudt's implication here that this is like the situation in New York and that there's been some kind of malfeasance here by the administration. Nothing could be further from the truth. What we have here is 4 laboratories that did not follow state law and were not reporting. And so it's essentially a misclassification of these deaths. Obviously, it was known that these deaths occurred, but it was not known that they were COVID-related deaths because the reporting had not been done. So it's not like someone discovered some people had died that we didn't know about. It's simply that these were not attributed to COVID, which they should have been. And I do want to note that contrary to some, what I would call conspiracy theories about this, the state has been very careful about attributing only deaths to COVID when they have been really carefully determined to be, in fact, due to COVID. So just wanted to clarify that this is not a situation like what happened in New York State, and this has been corrected. And from here on, I hope that it'll be good. And these labs, there will be a full accounting of why this occurred. Thank you.
The member from Isanti, Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and thank you to Chair Liebling. I certainly respect her opinion, but it is that, an opinion. We do not know if what happened here in Minnesota is the same as what happened in New York. We don't know that at all. But I would invite you, Chair Liebling, to have a hearing on it, of which I will attend, and we'll have a very thorough discussion about what happened with those deaths and why they were underreported, and the fact that, which I think is almost a statistical impossibility, that 100% of the unreported deaths were in nursing homes. So I look forward to that hearing, and you can certainly just send me an email to let me know when to show up.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I was motivated by the comments of Chair Liebling. I can appreciate her mistakenly believing that us being present and us doing work are one and the same, but they are not. Members, I've had a lot of jobs in my career and multiple different industries, but there isn't a single industry that I've ever worked for that simply gets credit for being present. And that is the illusion that Chair Liebling just said, is that we are here. But the fact is, we are here. And that in and of itself should be the fact that emergency powers are not needed. When Governor Walz can make an announcement about a coming announcement, when he can days in advance say, I'm going to announce today that I'm going to make an announcement several days from now about modifications to my rules, my unilateral edicts, that in and of itself demonstrates the lack of emergency when he has that luxury. So again, Chair Liebling is spot on that we are here. That should be the reason to end the peacetime emergency. Members, please vote green. But being here does not equal we're actually doing work. Because if we were doing work and there was an actual interest to get something done in regards to the peacetime emergency in Chapter 12 and actually bringing us back to the Constitution, it would be done. The legislature has the ability to make decisions in a very quick manner when there's political will. But we don't have that now. Madam Speaker, please vote green. Thank you.
The member from Douglas, Representative Franson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Just to piggyback off of what Minority Leader Representative Daudt had to say about holding a hearing on the long-term care deaths. Members, the majority of those deaths have taken place in long-term care, just like in New York, Michigan, where other states that has not been the case. Members, I'm going to have a bill that's going to be drafted to do an investigation, an audit into those deaths, all of the COVID deaths, along with the deaths in long-term care. Representative Liebling, I implore you to hold a hearing. Minnesotans need the answers along with the families. Why was there why were these deaths primarily taking place in the long-term care settings? Back to now the entire repealing of the emergency orders. It is time, members. When this pandemic first started, I think we were all like, oh my gosh, we got to do what we got to do in order to save lives. 15 days to slow the spread. On March 17th at 5 p.m., it will be a year since our businesses had been sheltered. Some are up to still at 50%, others at 25%, people not being able to have their weddings the way that they should be having weddings. This has just gone long enough. It's just crazy town. States across the nation are opening up, including dropping their mask mandates. It is time. Maybe you don't want to work. Maybe you don't want to make those tough decisions and you just want to rely and blame the governor. Members, we have an election certificate for a reason. We take tough votes. We answer to our constituents. It's getting exhausting saying, I am sorry, please contact the Democrat lawmakers and ask them to remove the peacetime emergency powers, email the governor and tell him to drop the peacetime emergency powers. It's exhausting, and playing the blame game is getting rather old. We need to come together, start making these decisions as a team instead of relying on the governor. As far then, what we are learning and what we have known for a long time is that obesity is a leading cause of the COVID-19 mortality rates. Members, I'm kind of shocked that I belong on the Preventative Health Policy Committee, and I honestly thought that we were going to be taking up issues that dealt with COVID-19 and the comorbidity issues that we have in our state and in this nation, and we have not until today when we took up a bill to tax restaurants on the the childhood nutrition meals, when offering them different foods instead of sugary drinks. That was a good conversation. We need to continue having those conversations, but that was the first bill that we heard that dealt with childhood obesity. I've got a bill out there that I introduced to mandate insurance coverage of vitamin D testing for those who want their vitamin D levels checked. vitamin D and COVID go hand in hand. The higher levels that your vitamin D are, the more likely that you have a chance at beating the COVID-19. We need to take health into our own hands. And it's time that we start having these discussions. A mask is not going to save your life, but perhaps leading a healthier lifestyle and reducing comorbidities is the answer to beating COVID-19. Members, it is time to allow Minnesotans to live their life. They have been under peacetime emergency powers far too long, and we are being lapped by other states. If Minnesota truly is a leader in the nation, then let's drop the emergency powers and let's get on with our lives. Thank you.
The member from Scott, the author of the motion, Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Fear is a very powerful concoction, and it's usually comprised of both a truth and a lie. It usually creates its own self-fulfilling narrative and compel people to act in ways that they have never imagined. Minnesotans are no longer fearful, Representative Winkler. They see the truth for what it is, that this pandemic has come to an end. They are moving on. They are moving back to normal. And even more pointedly, they want us. They want their voices to once again be heard and matter in this chamber. I urge you to join us and the countless Minnesotans who have stopped being afraid of normal. Members, I urge you to support your constituents as you support this resolution. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the roll on the motion. To recall House Concurrent Resolution number 1 from rules. Members, please vote. Will the clerk call the names of those members who haven't voted yet?
Ackland.
Ackland, aye.
Ackland, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Berg.
Berg, no.
Berg, no. Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss, aye. Davids.
Davids, aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Daphne, no.
Davney, no. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Feist.
Feist, no.
Feist, no. Fisher.
Fisher, no.
Fisher, no. Franzen.
Franson, yes.
Franzen, aye. Garofalo.
Garoppolo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson, R, no.
Hanson, R, no. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, no.
Jordan, no. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, capital letters, bold, underline, yes.
Lucero, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, no.
Mariani, no. Mason.
Mason, definitely no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald votes aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklen.
Meckland, aye.
Mecklen, aye. Moran.
Morant, no.
Moran, no. Nash.
Nash votes aye.
Nash, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson, N, aye.
Nelson, N, aye. O'Driscoll.
O'Driscoll votes aye.
O'Driscoll, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, no.
Pryor, no. Ryer.
Pryor, no.
Ryer, no. Sandsted.
Sandsted, no.
Sandsted, no. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Sundin.
No.
Sundin, no. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Tice, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 63 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail.
Mortensen moves that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that House File Number 1262 be recalled from the Committee on Taxes, be given its second read and third readings, and be placed upon its final passage.
The member from Scott, Representative Mortensen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, as every member is well aware, the most pressing issues in front of us are not being acted on. We just saw what happened with the effort to end the peacetime emergency. And another effort here is, or this important issue is this bill preventing income taxes from being paid by forgiven PPP loans. We've had these bills in committee and we've asked the chair, can we get a standalone vote on this issue? To which the chair of the tax committee said that he would leave that to leadership. So right now there are 102,000 businesses that are affected by this decision, largely are waiting to file their income taxes. So this is the opportunity for leadership of this body to show Minnesota businesses that you're listening, you care, and that this is an urgent matter that every single state around Minnesota has already resolved. Coincidentally, every other state around Minnesota is also lifting their restrictions, their COVID restrictions. We are late to the game on both fronts. So to say that we are a leader is simply not true. We are failing to act because majority members of this body choose to bury their heads in the sand and forget about these things. So I hope for a yes vote. I ask for a roll call vote and for hands.
Representative Mortensen requests a roll call vote. There are not 15 hands in the chamber. If you'd like to raise your hand, please send an email to hands@house.mn. Members, a minute has expired and there are not sufficient hands for a roll call. The member from Clay, Representative Marquart.
So thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members. I would ask members to vote against this motion to suspend the rules. I have authored House File 501, which provides for full conformity of the Paycheck Protection Program and also other important conformity for businesses and individuals. That has been heard in committee. It is a top priority, and it is something we need to take action on. But as we progress on this bill, it is really important that we include all businesses and all individuals who have been impacted by COVID-19. According to the Department of Revenue, 68% of the PPP loans that went out to businesses who operated in a loss this year. And what does that mean? It means that those businesses that have been hit the hardest by the COVID-19 will not see a benefit from this PPP loan forgiveness in 2020 because they saw a loss. Also, we've got families who have lost jobs and receive federal supplemental unemployment insurance. And the state didn't withhold taxes on that. They're going to get an unexpected tax bill. We have to take care of that. So members, as we look at conforming to the PPP loans, we have to make sure we don't leave any of our businesses, any of our individuals and families who have been hit really hard by this pandemic. We can't leave them behind. And so I know this bill, House File 1262, does not have a Senate companion. We also know that the House of the U.S. House of Representatives is debating a new stimulus bill that I think will be in the law very shortly. We don't know yet because I know there's provisions on the Paycheck Protection Program. We don't know how that's going to interact with this. So members, we need to include all of our businesses to give them immediate relief here in 2020. And so members, we've got a bill in the tax committee that's been authored. We have discussed that. It's ready to go as we work together in a package and making sure that we continue to help our businesses and our individuals and families who have been hit hard by COVID-19. Members, I'd ask you to vote no.
The member from Candy, Ojai, Representative Miller.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. So I do thank Representative Mortensen for bringing this bill forward, and I'm on tax committee, and so I do, of course, appreciate the work that Chair Marquart has done in there. And we kind of know the way that this is going to go. It's not going to move forward, but this is an important point to be made in this. We have businesses that I've talked to, you all have talked to them, and they're facing two dilemmas. First of all, they have to do their taxes here, and there's almost a presumption if we don't get this sort of work done before they do the taxes, they're going to have to do a second filing, which increases work, increases frustrations for the accountants, on and on and on. And it was also discussed, I believe, in committee, if not there, certainly other places, that there are businesses that are going to have to pay out taxes that they simply don't have right now because of the punishing effects of what Governor Walz has done to this state. They just don't have the money. And so we're trying to do that. But as I listen to the arguments on this, and I listen to the chatter that's happening here on the floor, I listen to the discussion on the past motion. Madam Speaker, people in Minnesota are frustrated. People in this House of Representatives are frustrated because we spend so much of our energy, so much of our time, so much of what we do in games, in things for the camera, in quotes that we can have for the newspaper to make sure we have the upper hand on this, or someone else gets the lower hand on that. The people of Minnesota are sick and tired of this. And I challenge the majority, because you have all the power. Other than for me to have this microphone, you have all the power to do whatever you want. Governor Walz has ultimately all the power And look at what our state has become. We've become a shambles. We've become argumentative. Any of you that have visited another state, and I'm not just talking South Dakota out by me, I'm talking Iowa, you go to other states, and they have very similar rules, perhaps, but there's a sense of community there. There's a sense of working together. There's a sense of positivity. There are challenges ahead. People here in Minnesota, we've created depression. We've created arguments. We've created petty things that happen here on the floor. I don't understand why we can't move forward with the people's business. I know that there are challenges with the PPP loan forgiveness tax implications. But I also know that we can work it out. Since I've been in office, we've risen to the challenge of things that have to happen now. And to hear that they have to go through committee, they have this process, they have that process, that's all part of the games. Now, members, we are better than this. I trust that all of you are intelligent enough to know this. We have to stop the bickering. We have to stop trying to get the upper hand because our party needs to gain the upper hand on something, or we got to protect someone, or we got to do this or that. The people of Minnesota have just had it, and I'm about to be shouted down because that's what he does. So, Madam Speaker, thank you. I ask people vote for this. Thank you.
The member from Isanti, Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Representative Mortensen, thanks for bringing this forward. I think you're just one of many members that have bills to do this. This is an important issue. March 15th, businesses will have to pay in their business taxes. And in the state of Minnesota, businesses are taxed on the loan forgiveness from the federal PPP loans. I want to just say this a little different way so that I can put into perspective kind of where this money comes from and what it's doing and the impact that it has on our revenues here in the state of Minnesota. So the cost of doing this, and that's the way we say it in St. Paul. I always hate to use that term, but I'm going to because it's the way we talk about it as it relates to our budget. But for us to exempt PPP loans, I think the number is $435 million. It might be 440, whatever, close enough. It's right in that neighborhood. $435 million. And that's money that came from the federal government to Minnesota businesses to keep them on a lifeline so that they were still alive and still employing Minnesotans, so that when this pandemic was over, they could be healthy and they could benefit from and grow and appreciate the economic boom that will happen when COVID is in our rearview mirror. $435 million. But that's not the only money that's coming from the federal government that's being taxed. The unemployment benefit that, if you remember, the federal government gave an extra $600 per week on top of unemployment benefits. I think the current bill has an additional $300 per week on top of the standard unemployment benefits. Unemployment benefits in the state of Minnesota are taxed. That's been the history forever. That shouldn't change, really. But that $600 was an extra incentive by the federal government. The federal government does not tax that money. They do not tax PPP loans. We didn't envision that this sort of thing would be happening, and our tax code just recognizes that this would be taxed. No, so we have to, like many other states, we have to actually make a change. We have to pass a law saying that this would not be taxed. The cost for that unemployment, that $600 extra or $300 extra on top of unemployment, $200 million. So $635 million approximately to do that. What does that mean? $635 million is the amount of money that the state of Minnesota is profiting off of money sent by the federal government to businesses to employ Minnesotans and to unemployed Minnesotans to help them through the pandemic. So rather than let the businesses keep all that money and the unemployed Minnesotans keep all that money, the state of Minnesota is taking some of it at a time when we have a surplus. So we got our revenue forecast a week or so ago. And our revenue forecast calls for a $1.6 billion surplus in the next biennium. And that's the biennium that we'll be setting the budget for, $1.6 billion. $635 million of that $1.6 billion is money that we're profiting from the federal government by taxing that money. Think about that for a second. Of our $1.6 billion surplus, $635 million of it comes from taxing this benefit to Minnesotans and the businesses sent by the federal government that the federal government is not taxing. Doesn't seem right, does it? Doesn't it seem like the federal government intended for those businesses and those unemployed Minnesotans to keep that money? I assure you, if you haven't gotten emails yet from Minnesota businesses who will have to pay in an increased tax bill on March 15th, you will. And I definitely assure you that before personal income tax returns are filed on April 15th, that you are going to hear from many Minnesotans who were unemployed who received this $600 benefit and did not have any Minnesota state income taxes deducted from that payment, and now are going to be expected to pay in the taxes on that payment. You absolutely will be hearing from those people. So we have a $1.6 billion surplus. I think this morning, is it tomorrow morning? I can't remember. In Washington, D.C., they're passing this next COVID relief bill. Maybe it's tomorrow morning. Was this morning? Okay. $2.6 billion in that bill for the state of Minnesota. $2.6 billion. So add that to our $1.6 billion surplus. That gives us a $4.2 billion surplus in the state of Minnesota for the next biennium. 4.2. We were projected last summer to have a $4.5 billion deficit in the next biennium. What a turnaround it's been. Interestingly enough, and this is something that's going to be very important as we work through our state's budget, of our $1.6 billion surplus, just a little less than $1 billion of that is one-time money. Okay? This taxation of these federal dollars would be one-time money because that benefit was given from the federal government to Minnesota businesses in the form of a loan forgiveness. And that $600 kicker on top of the unemployment was given as a one-time benefit. That will only be taxable this year. So we only receive the revenue off of it this year. I'm going to say it another way. We will only be stealing that money out of the pockets of Minnesotans who are unemployed and need that money. And we will only be stealing that money from Minnesota businesses who got a loan forgiveness to keep Minnesotans employed during the term of the pandemic. We'll only get that this year. It's one-time money. It's not ongoing revenue. We don't get to tax that every year. It won't be there. So of our $4.2 billion surplus, $3.6 billion of that is one-time money. $3.6 billion. And only $600 million of it is ongoing. Now, the first lesson that you need to learn in the legislature is you cannot spend one-time money on ongoing expenses. If you do that, this state will be in a deficit. So we've got $600 million of real surplus and $3.6 billion of one-time money. By the way, exempting that unemployment benefit from state income tax and letting Minnesotans keep that money that was intended for them and not taking money out of their pockets, that's a one-time expense on our books. So it's the perfect thing to match up with this money. And by the way, exempting the PPP loans, which kept so many Minnesotans on the payroll at their jobs and kept so many Minnesota businesses, small Minnesota businesses, alive during this pandemic, that's also a one-time expense on our books. So it works perfectly. We're going to have trouble finding one-time things to spend this money on. And we shouldn't miss an opportunity to take care of this. While I appreciate Representative Mortensen's efforts here, I would advise him to read the Minnesota Constitution. This bill does not have a Senate companion and therefore cannot and will not ever become law. So I would advise him to work with someone in the Senate or sign on to a bill here in the House that has a Senate companion so that we can actually solve this problem. Thank you, members.
Further discussion on the Mortensen motion to suspend. The member from Scott, Representative Mortensen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. And thank you, Chair Marquart. I am encouraged at your commitment to make sure we can help all Minnesotans. That's a slightly different message that we heard from you in committee a couple weeks ago. And I think we all agree this is urgent. We shouldn't be waiting 2 more months for this to get thrown in some giant 600-page tax omnibus bill. We should be working on this right now. There's a big difference between being busy and being productive. And right now, from where I sit, I see a busy legislature producing next to nothing. Now, like Minority Leader Daudt mentioned, I don't have a Senate companion bill, and it seems Chair Marquart is, of course, favors his own bill because, well, there's a room full of egos here. So I will lead in the spirit of bipartisanship, and I will amend my motion to recall my bill 1262, and I will amend my motion to recall House File 501, Chair Marquart's bill, and I will again ask for a roll call vote. And I'd remind members, people, if you vote no on this motion, that is a vote against Minnesota small businesses.
Representative Mortensen, you need to withdraw this motion and make a new motion, or we need to vote on this motion. We have to dispose of the motion before us. It cannot be amended.
Okay, sorry, Madam Chair. All right, Madam Speaker, I will withdraw my motion and make a new motion to recall House File 501 to be adopted on the floor.
Representative Mortensen withdraws his motion.
Mortensen moves that the rules of the House be so far suspended that House File number 501 be recalled from the Committee on Taxes, be given its second and third readings, and be placed upon its adoption.
Representative Mortensen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a spirit of compromise, so I'm reaching across the aisle here and recognizing that the bill we've already had in front of committee that's been heard, that it seems the chair is very looks favorably upon. I would like to move that we take action on this and we start to show Minnesota businesses that we hear them, we are being compassionate, and we're going to take action on their needs.
The member from Clay, Representative Marquart.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members. Members, I would ask you to again vote no. Representative Mortensen said he wanted to help small businesses. By doing this without including these businesses that saw a loss, which I mentioned earlier, they will not benefit one dime in 2020 by this conformity to the protection, the Paycheck Protection Program. So I please ask everyone to vote no and not allow Representative Mortensen to leave all of these businesses behind, all these restaurants, all these bars, all these event venue centers, all these fitness centers, all these businesses that got hit the hardest. They saw a loss. They won't benefit one dime, not one dime. Let's include them. I want to, and the tax committee wants to, the DFL wants to help all businesses, all individuals that have been hit hard by this pandemic. We see it out in our communities. And I don't want to leave something out on the House floor. I don't want to have Representative Mortensen leave all of these businesses and individuals behind. So members, please vote no.
The member from Isanti, Representative Daudt.
If Representative Marquart could yield for a question.
Representative Marquart, will you yield for a question? He will yield. Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker, and Representative Marquart. I apologize. It's just a little bit difficult sometimes to hear in the chamber when a member is speaking remotely, and I see you're in your office over there across the street, but you were saying that the businesses in Minnesota would not benefit one dime if we passed this bill. Can you explain? I think that's what you were saying. Can you clarify that and explain why you're saying that?
Representative Marquart.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Representative Daudt, they would not benefit in 2020 because what this is, it's basically you're excluding income that came in, and according to the Department of Revenue, 68% of the dollars that went out on the PPP loans went to businesses that saw a loss this year. So there's no benefit in 2020. Now, they would see in the future a net operating loss that they could apply if they see income in future years. But those are the type of businesses that need assistance right now. And that's what we're also working on in tax committee is how can we get more aid and dollars out to those businesses that would not benefit this year from the PPP loan forgiveness.
Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think, obviously we need to have a good debate on this issue because I'm not completely sure I agree with Representative Marquart. And while yes, businesses that received this benefit, this loan forgiveness, if you received a PPP loan, you were required to spend that loan on deductible expenses. So you factually could say that businesses aren't going to pay tax on this money because they have the expense to offset the revenue. But what happens in a real business is that they may have had some other revenue that they now cannot use those expenses to offset that are now exposed to income tax. And the reality is, and the bottom line is, this bill would have a fiscal note of $435 million. So the $435 million is the amount of benefit, frankly, that Minnesota businesses would be getting. And while, yes, I do support it, I agree that Representative Marquart, we need to have a more thorough debate on this, but the clock is ticking because this tax bill comes due on March 15th. So this is something we need to do, and we need to do quickly. And it isn't something we need to hold hostage for trades, for other things. This is, and I'll be on the record right now saying we need to exempt these PPP loans and make sure that the state is not profiting off of money that was sent by the federal government to help businesses. I'm also going to be on the record right now saying that the state should not be profiting off of money that was sent to Minnesotans in the way of a supplement to their unemployment checks by the state taxing those benefits and us taking that money right out of the pockets of Minnesota families. We shouldn't be doing either one of those things. They're wrong. And right now, there's $635 million that's showing up in our surplus because our statutes assume that we will be taxing those dollars. So it's something we need to fix, and we need to fix quickly. Thank you.
The member from Candido High, Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, and Chair Marquart, I agree with your conversation or what you said about getting this right. As Representative Daudt mentioned, and I'm sure everyone knows, some businesses will be filing by March 15th, which is 5 days from now. Now, in this chamber, there's a lot of reasons why we bring emergency, we bring things to suspend the rules because of an emergency, and only occasionally are they truly emergencies. In my years here, I've probably seen 3, 4, 5 times where that's been the case. Well, members, there's some businesses that are seeing this in 5 days. This is truly a time to get this taken care of. And Chair Marquart, I agree that this needs to be made right for all businesses. But I've been around here long enough to know that the process goes, we pass this out of the House, it goes to the Senate, they do their thing, there's conference committee, there's discussion, and we have seen time and again where these factors get figured out before we see a final conference committee report that we vote on. These things can be fixed, members, in the days ahead, but they can't be fixed if we just kind of continue to sit on our hands. This is something that should be done now. I thank Representative Mortensen for recognizing that we needed to get this, and Representative Daudt, I appreciate you pointing out that we need to get the right bill before us. So now we have the right bill before us, so we need to vote for this. Members, let's put aside partisanship, let's put aside games, and let's get moving on this. We can legitimately get this done if we start moving with the Senate right now. And by the way, members, when we do conference committees, when we do that, where the one chamber votes and the other one votes, just like the good old days, and then we get a conference committee, which we haven't done for a very long time, at least of substantive work, that is the good legislative process that we're talking about. We can get that before the governor, we can move forward, we can figure this out. Please vote green.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I do have a question for the chair, if you would yield.
Representative Marquart, will you yield for a question?
Yes.
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And before my question for the chair, point of parliamentary inquiry, the motion on the table, Madam Speaker, is it a majority vote that's required, or is it a supermajority?
That is a parliamentary inquiry. Let me consult with the chief clerk. Representative Lucero, this is a motion to suspend the rules. It's a 90 vote threshold. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Marquart, if we were to pass this motion, as you articulated, you don't believe your bill is in 100% shape, that there are some things you'd want to change to it, as you, again, in your comments earlier. So we could offer an amendment to get it in the shape that you would want it to be beneficial to all businesses. The thing that I'm really concerned about is I have multiple businesses myself. I have both single owner companies and multi-owner companies. And all multi-owner companies have to file by March 15th, as we've already heard on the floor here. One of the things that's incredibly frustrating for me and business owners all across the state is the wanton disregard for those in the majority party who continue to drag their feet, right? If there was a will to move this forward, we would, and we could suspend the rules right now. We could make an amendment, Chair Marquart, to allow for this, to improve the bill. And I'm getting to my question, Chair Marquart. If there was an interest in doing so, we could. Just as we've seen the majority, when there's a will, they'll cram those bills right through, right? They'll completely disregard the opinions of Minnesotans and just ram them through. We could do the same thing now, and we could have a positive benefit for all of Minnesota businesses. The thing that's very frustrating is those like myself who have already filed our business taxes by March 15th, if this were to come law, now it's going to be, there's no choice at this point, after March 15th, we're going to have to amend our tax returns. And what's the frustrating part is the wanton disregard of the majority party to recognize the additional cost for businesses to have to amend their tax returns. It's going to cost me at least $400. And I have a simple tax return, simple business tax return. Madam Speaker and Chair Marquart, my question is, would you be willing to support this motion and then make an amendment to get it in the shape that you would want in order to expand and encompass all small businesses as you articulated?
Representative Marquart.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members and Representative Lucero. I firmly believe the best work of the legislature is done in committee. Doesn't always work so well when we work on the fly off the House floor. So any changes that would be made at this point, I would want to have due diligence and deliberation through the Taxes Committee. And you know, we've got a heavy lift this year, and we've got an excellent Tax Committee, Democrats and Republicans alike. And I'm confident when we can move as quickly as we possibly can. A lot of it certainly depends on what leadership thoughts are. But we have over $800 million of conformity. So, you know, the Paycheck Protection Program's $438 million of it. There is still a lot of other items that impact individuals and other business items that we have besides the unemployment insurance tax benefits that Representative Stevenson, we heard in committee yesterday. That's another $273 billion. So I think it's best when we've got numbers like this, important high priority issues like this, when we've got the U.S. House of Representatives debating another stimulus plan that's going to have more ramifications and implications for our tax area, that we take this to Tax Committee where we've got folks who deal with that, and we can give the body and the state of Minnesota a good product that, again, is going to help those businesses and those individuals and families that have been hit the hardest by COVID-19. We need that recovery. They need that help.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And one of the most embarrassing things for an IT professional is when technology fails me. So I received some text messages that I was barely being able to be heard. I'm speaking louder now without my earbuds. I'm hoping I'm coming across okay. So, Madam
I
Speaker,
think you were actually better before, Representative Lucero.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think you were actually louder with the earbuds.
Was I? Well, then I'll put them back in.
No, you're fine.
Madam Speaker.
Representative Lucero, that's a little bit better, but you might still want to project.
I have a natural outside voice. I'll project. Thank you. The second most embarrassing thing for an IT security professional is the headline, laptop stolen from backseat of car. So anyway, I'm successful in number 2, but I'm failing in number 1. To my point, Chair Marquart made the comment that our best work is done in committee. We clearly know that is not the case. When there is an interest and there is a priority from the majority party, they will cram legislation through, disregarding Minnesota testifiers, disregarding the ability for members to question. And so we know that was a priority, and that's why legislation got crammed through in defiance of what the common person would define a healthy and best committee process to be. Again, in defiance of that. So the fact that we're dragging our feet and not seeing bills now in the looming March 15th deadline is a demonstration of the lack of priority, the lack of regard for hardworking Minnesota small businesses across this state. Now is the time. There is no reason we can't vote to suspend the rules, to take up this bill, and then we could have an amendment on the floor to get it in the shape, to get it what needs to be to benefit all businesses across the state. We can do that. The reason we're not, unfortunately, there isn't a priority. But members, please vote green so we can support small businesses. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Members, we need to vote no on this motion to bring this bill forward. Much as I enjoy watching some good Republican on Republican arguing here on the floor, I think our committees need to get to work. We're already 30 minutes over. We don't even know what this bill does or why we're bringing it forward on this motion. Vote no. We actually are making progress in a lot of areas in committee. We are doing nothing but wasting time here today on the floor. Please vote no.
The member from Scott, Representative Mortensen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I will make sure that Minnesota businesses across the state are aware that the majority leader thinks we are wasting time trying to fight on their behalf. I would add that although the U.S. House of Representatives is looking at making changes, every single state around Minnesota has already corrected this issue. So they'll have the same challenge that we would have should this go through. So I want to thank everybody again. I ask for a roll call vote. This is an important issue, and I think the people across Minnesota deserve to know where people stand on this.
Representative Mortensen requests a roll call vote. There are not 15 members in the chamber, so members, you have 60 seconds to email hands@house.mn. Members, there are not 15 hands. There will not be a roll call. All those in favor of the Mortensen motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion does not prevail.
Aye.
No.
Winkler moves that the chief clerk be instructed to invite the Senate by message to a joint convention to be held on Monday, March 15th, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. in the chamber of the House of Representatives to elect to the Board of Regents of University of Minnesota.
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, it's that time of year, everyone's favorite moment, when we get to invite the Senate to the chamber and elect regents. We'll do this Monday evening. Please support the motion.
3 unpopular words in the Minnesota House of Representatives. Invite the Senate. Nevertheless, members, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
No.
Announcements. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I want to make sure I get this right before I announce it. Members, committees will begin 5 minutes after adjournment. Hopefully members who are in the chamber will be able to get there on time. Committees will have their full 90 minutes, and we will have to push back everything on the schedule to accommodate that, but committees will continue to meet within the full 90-minute time frame that they need to process bills today. So everything will be backed up as a result of floor action today.
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m. Thursday, March 11th, 2021.
Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m. Thursday, March 11th, 2021. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until 3:30 p.m. Thursday, March 11th, 2021.